So, hey, Diego. So tonight,
Hello.
we're gonna do a little more on the PV electrical, and then we're gonna look at solar heating, mostly water, but a little air. And then we're gonna look at what's the last one? You know, I told somebody I did a lesson plan earlier. Can't even remember my own lesson plan. Oh, passive solar heating. Yeah, passive solar heating. Hey, Alan.
Hey, Patrick, sorry I'm late and sorry I missed Saturday's field trip.
Yeah, that's okay. So we look at the video for Saturday, right?
Yeah, I will check it out. It's on the YouTube, right?
Yeah, so let me, while we brought up the subject, let me clarify that, because we decided we were going with a non-Zoom camera, and I decided to go back to the school Zoom setup. And so we can do it live. There's no reason not to do the Saturdays live. So we've got Saturday Zoom meetings and Monday night Zoom meetings. We've got 2 more Monday nights on the original link that you guys got, right? You still have that, the one you plugged in tonight. So that'll work for, what's tonight, the 7th? That'll work for, oh, just the next week, 14th, that's the last one. Then the rest of the Mondays will be in person at Wake Center, but we will still Zoom those from Wake Center. And that Zoom link is in an email I sent you today, and it says Monday night. There's a Monday light link, and I couldn't put, when you set up the Zooms, there's no way, or at least I can't figure out, to put Mondays and Saturdays together, because they want you just to, it's once a week or odd times. You could do every day of the week and then go back and delete the non-Monday and Saturday days, but I was too lazy to do that. So there's a separate link for the Saturday Zooms, okay? So after next week, when you finish the link you're on right now, there'll be just 2 links, a Saturday and a Monday, and they're on that email I sent you. Is everybody clear about that? Okay.
Yes,
great.
sir.
Yes.
All right, so that's that. And then also I found a mistake in our schedule. I can't believe I would make a mistake, but it happens sometimes. So I'm going to turn to it. What am I doing here? Okay, so do you all see this schedule page on your monitor?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's on there.
yeah, so go on the right-hand column, the Saturday dates. There's a February 19th. You see that?
Yes.
The next one shouldn't be February 22nd. It should be February 26th.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but I just wrote down 26. I mean 22. And then the one after that will be March 5th. So the one that says 29th now, this one here, should be March 5th. Which makes sense, because then 2 days later is March 7th on a Monday. And then the March 7th one should be March 12th, March 12. And then the 14th should be March 19th. Everybody got that?
Yeah.
On it.
You know, if you don't care about the dates, then that won't matter. But sometimes you trying to figure out where we are, and the dates help. Okay. I think that's any business, any problems people are having?
Do you know anything about the CARES Act grants?
I might have. Does it go to the
There is-
faculty first and then we disseminate it to you guys?
I don't know. I got an email the other day about the CARES Act emergency grants for credit students that are currently enrolled in a minimum of 3 units. I was just wondering if you had heard anything further about that at all.
You
Well,
have to write like a
if not-
statement or something like that saying why you're in need
Gotcha.
due to COVID and the pandemic and how you're limited in some way.
Yeah, thanks, Louis. So everybody look on their school website, their pipeline account, and see if there's an email from the school administration about these CARES grants. And it'll probably explain the eligibility that Louis just referred to and see if you're eligible. And I'll look into it.
One of my old coworkers got some money from it, I guess, but I mean, if you're not impacted by it, like if you can still work and you can still go to school, then you're kind of just making stuff up and taking money away from people that actually need it. So
All right. So that's where we'll leave that. Good point. Oh, yeah. So you got that earlier in the week, you got that long series of handouts, long pages. I guess I'll put that on the screen and are we going to go through that? Yeah, we'll go through the first part on PV, and then we'll go to the book, the text, and we'll look at what they say about solar heating and all the pictures. And then we'll go back to the solar heating handouts, and then we'll end up with the solar space heating handout. So the vocabulary is, because we have different solars, and most people don't know about anything besides photovoltaics, electricity, but there is solar heating, which also has panels that go on the roof. And also solar space heating we'll look at a picture of a panel that goes on the roof and heats space. So there's other things besides photovoltaics, but if you say PV, which stands for photovoltaics, or rooftop electrical, then that'll designate that area. And if you say rooftop solar water heating, that'll designate that type. And then if you say passive space heating, that can be either through the window, like we're going to talk about today, or they do have these heaters that take in hot air and blow them into the rooms. Those aren't very prevalent here. I don't know about Europe, but we'll just mention them in passing. So those are kind of the 3 areas that there are. Okay, so let me get the and I sent you an additional handout. Did everybody get that?
Yeah, I got
Yep.
it.
It was just some figures, but I forgot to include them. I put it on an envelope. I was fooling around with it. That book on passive solar has it, but it's in a narrative form, and I kind of wanted to put it in a briefer form. So, okay, so this I put the cover of the book that I'm getting a lot of this from. And when we go to class, next time we're at the classroom in Wake, and I haven't decided on a field trip for Wake. I'll let you know during the week. But we may not always go to Wake Center on Saturday before the field trip. We may go straight to the field trip. And if someone needs a ride, I can always go by Wake and pick people up. But the Monday after next, we will be there every Monday night. And I'll have all these books I've been mentioning there for you to look at, okay? So if you just want to take any names down now. So this Photovoltaic Systems was a book actually designed for classes in photovoltaic training. And a lot of community colleges use it. I used it for my photovoltaic class when I had it. It's done by an engineer. It's really got great pictures and covers a lot of ground. I think it's an excellent book. So I would recommend that. And they give you a little CD-ROM that has stuff on it. It's pretty good. And I'll have a version you can look at when you come one of these weekends. Okay, so now, oh yeah. Okay, so after that on your thing was a page that had the electromagnetic spectrum on it. So this is just good stuff to know as a human being. I mean, it's good science to know. It's just some basic science, and a lot of you probably already know this. So, but we have all radiations called electromagnetic radiation, and it's just part of our universe. And a lot of it's created out there in the universe. Some was created in the Big Bang, and we're still getting the stuff billions of years later. But we also create some of the things like radio waves and microwaves. And we create infrared, even though the sun also creates it. And we create X-rays. So, but all this radiation is mostly distinguished by the wavelength of the waves. And the smaller wavelengths, so when you have 10 to the minus 12, that's the smallest, and it gets less to even a meter. Some of these microwaves and radio waves are 3 feet. Look at this 10 cube, that's 1,000 feet. Some radio waves are actually huge. So we have a whole spread of, and these are the ones we know about. There could be ones in between. Obviously, these are pretty big gaps, but we have no devices yet to detect them. So this is where we are right now in terms of radiation. So gamma rays comes from the universe, and they pelt the earth and everything. So those go through us. We don't even notice them very much. X-rays are the next on this list are the next biggest rays, and they do damage if we get too many of those. So that's one. And then we have a whole section here called this gray part. You see that, the shadow part? That's all the radiation wavelengths that are associated with light, what we call light. So the smallest ones are ultraviolet light, and those wreak problems too. You notice it's the smaller wavelengths that are the hardest on our bodies, except for gamma rays.
Patrick, are you sharing your screen?
Oh God.
We just see you.
No, I know, but you know, I sorry, my fault, but you guys should tell me ahead of that. It's okay.
I have it on my phone.
Yeah, I mean, you've got this at home, so, but I wanted to share. Okay, there you go. You see that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this something we should print out or?
Well, if you want it, if you want this for a record, I'll tell you when we do the prep for the midterm and final, I'll tell you the stuff that's going to be on it, and if any of that information's on a handout, I'll let you know, and then you can either print it out to study for that or just study it online. Okay.
Okay.
So here's the spectrum. These are the smallest wavelengths, gamma rays. They come from activity in the universe. Then the next smallest are X-rays. We talked about that. They're 10 to the minus meter. They're small and they do damage if we get enough of it. That's why your doctors are real careful not to X-ray you too much. They've got good radiation now. The dental X-rays are not this wavelength. There's some other kind of radiation, but it's not near as destructive now, which is really great because we need dental X-rays all the time. Then you get down to this area in here, the shaded area. It's the light spectrum. It's got the beginning is ultraviolet light, which is the smallest wavelength. And those can be damaging to our skin, too much of those. And then we have visible light, which is what our eyes are sensitive to. It's just all radiation. And unless you have a receiving mechanism can pick these things up, it's just radiation that just flings all around the world, all around the universe. But as animals, we have eyes that have evolved to capture the visible light, and then our brain produces a picture of the world from the structure of that light, which is pretty freaking remarkable, right? But we wouldn't be able to function in the world. Well, we'd be like blind, but then our other senses do the same thing. They take like touch and sound and heat. They take radiation, sound waves, infrared for heat, and our brain turns it into some kind of picture. So ultraviolet's the large, the small wave side of light. Visible light's the middle, and then the upper side is called infrared. And so that's infrared means it's warming, it's thermal. So this light's what creates the hot part of light. Visible light by itself is not warm, nor is ultraviolet. From the sun, they all come together. We get all those wavelengths. So any light we get will feel warm, but it's the infrared part of that spectrum that's doing that. Then you get bigger than infrared. You get microwaves, the kind they send out the radio, we make microwaves in a machine to heat our food, but also, the towers that transfer data use microwaves, and then radio waves are big. They can be anywhere from a meter to, here's 1,000 feet. I don't know what these are. And I don't know what would cause these. I think normal radio waves that work a radio are between a meter and 100 feet, I believe. Anyway, it's interesting to see all that. Let's move on. So I want to talk about insulation. Now, that's a word. I'll spell it for you later. Well, I'll spell it and then I'll write it for you later. INSOLATION. So it's like insulation, except with an O instead of a U. So it's a technical term, insulation, but that's the sunlight energy that we get. We call it insulation. So that changes. There's a lot of things that affect sunlight that determines how much of it reaches where we are, that we can capture in whatever devices we have. So part of that is seasonal, and you all know where we are, the summer, the orbit of the sun, the Earth's going around the sun, but it appears that the sun is going around us, and it's more overhead than any other time. In the winter, it's way down the hemisphere, depending on which hemisphere you're on. It's south or north. So obviously, this sun's going to be weaker here. So the season affects the solar angle, and then no, don't worry about that picture because I've got a better one for that. Now here's just how it turns out. They've measured the insolation across the country, and you can't see the color, but I'll tell you 5 on that chart, 5 to 5.5. This is the color right here. That's Santa Barbara, which is right here. Santa Barbara in the lower part of LA. So it's pretty good in terms of the various insolation across the country. We're up there. Obviously, the biggest is New Mexico and Arizona down here. That gets the most sun, most intense sun. And then obviously in the north, it's less. It's interesting that gets a bunch right there. Then here's another figure here that tells you when the sun's most intense during the day, any place, any day. So at sunrise, it's, obviously it's just starting. It's got a morning intensity, but the really time that you pick up the most energy and your photovoltaics are most active is in the middle 5.5 hours of the day. So, 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning, and then the corresponding 2 to 3 in the afternoon. So that's really your peak time. And then obviously, when the sun's lower, it's at an angle to where you are. When it's overhead, it's straight down and you get the most intense and most sunlight. When it's at an angle, it spreads itself out into more area, so it's less intense. That's why when it's going down, it's obviously less intense. Now, here's something that's really interesting, and I think you guys should remember this, memorize this, because it's great at a cocktail party and discussions when you want to show how much you know about the seasons and sunlight. So does anybody know why the sun is strongest in the summer and weakest in the winter?
Because of the angle.
Yeah, it's because of the angle, less so the season, right? Because the seasons, if we're seasonal, the summer's on one end, and what's before summer? Spring,
Spring.
and after summer is fall. So it's when you look at a orbit map of the oval, the elliptical orbit of the Earth around the sun, it doesn't make any sense because in fall, I could draw it. Maybe I'll draw it, or maybe I won't. But say summer's on the right and winter's on the left. So summer and winter are actually the same distance from the ellipse, right? But the spring and fall are, the same distance also, and they have different temperatures. So something else has to account for the difference. And what it is the angle, because of the air, the atmosphere in that angle, you've got more air mass is what they call it, which is this distance here. When it's at an angle, it goes through more atmosphere than if it's straight up. You can see that, right?
Yeah.
This angle is longer, this hypotenuse. This one's just short. So all the stuff in the air, the oxygen, the CO2, the methane, abandoned spaceships, whatever we have in the air, the sun has to go through all that. So the more of it you have, the less sunlight. So it's really the angle that the Earth is tilted. It's the tilt that really adds this extra mass. So it's the fact that in the winter the sunlight has to go through a longer period in the atmosphere than it does in summer. Okay, and this one, what I want you to see is the two angles in photovoltaic panels, arrays. One's called the azimuth angle right here. You can circle that. And that means the degrees away from south. Can go either way. And that'll determine how much sunlight you have. So when you get this angle, say it's halfway between south and southwest, this is not quite that. Then you can look up on charts what that'll be. And if you can tilt it more south, you're better. But sometimes you have obstructions here. And the best you can do is this, but you can still consult the charts. And I'll show you the charts, how this is less of a problem when it can't go straight south than people think. And then there's a tilt angle, which is how much off the horizontal it is. The sun's coming at an angle, right? So that tilt, when it's perpendicular to the sun, it's better. So we'll see how we can do that. Now, this chart here tells you your azimuth differences. So in southern US, which is us, when the sun is straight west, it's only 10 to 15 degrees less than 100%. So that's 85 to 90 degrees. So that's a pretty big percentage of possible sunlight, right? 85 to 90 degrees, and same with east. So you could pit these actually all the way over here and you get 95. And then the same with north. If the roof's flat enough, you can get quite a bit going north too. I'll show you what that is also. Now, so azimuth wise, we have quite a spread. Probably you want to get it into east and west, and the more towards south you can. But we'll show you how far away and what percentages there are in the next set. So here's Albuquerque. So they make these charts for every major city in the US, and they have them in the world too, but you can get these off the internet, these azimuth versus tilt charts of solar energy, depending on your latitude. So when you're in real north, you have a certain latitude that's going to give you a certain insulation, and when you're closer to the equator, you have that latitude will give you more. So we want to do Santa Barbara because that's where we live. So its latitude is 34.6 degrees north, northern hemisphere, and Albuquerque is 35.1. So it's pretty darn close to our latitude. You never think about Albuquerque, New Mexico as being the same as Santa Barbara, but it pretty much is. So the highest insulation, 1700, whatever they use for measuring, what is that? I'll get it in a second. We're just doing a relative comparison right here. Is at a tilt of 35 degrees. That means you want it 35 degrees off of horizontal and pretty close to south, right? Like a little bit east of south will give you your maximum. But look at what these other ones are. So I didn't write on this chart before I was fooling with it. So you'll have to just write these down if you're interested. But okay, so here's the thing. Is everybody listening?
Yes.
Yes.
So when you put solar panels on a roof, if you can put it on the same tilt as the roof, it looks a lot nicer, right? You can get them 4 inches off the roof and it pretty much looks like part of your roof. That's the best design function we can do. If you put infrastructure, you have metal things, a metal structure that holds it up, it's not going to look as good. So in Santa Barbara, our houses are designed between 10 and 25 degrees off of horizontal. So 10 is a 212 slope. Actually, it's 9, but it's close to 10. So for every 12 inches or 12 feet, we go horizontally. We go 2 feet vertically. If you've taken the roof framing course, you all know this, but even if you haven't, tilts are for every 12 inches, they go up so many inches. So if they go up 2 inches, it's called a 212. If it goes up 4 inches and 12 inches, it's called a 412. So the roofs in Santa Barbara are 212, 312, 412. 512 is 22 degrees. So it's a little 412 and 512 surround 20 here. So it's these 3 tilts that we're interested in. And you may not see it. Oh, let's see, that chart's in the book actually. So if we take these 3, because we want them to just lay flat on the roof, if we do it straight south, which is here, so it'd be this one, which you can't see, and that would be 93%. 96% would be a 312 roof, and 98% would be a 4 and 512 roof. So 93 to 98, that's pretty good percentage. That's if it's going straight south. So a lot of times they'll give they'll give the tilt degree, and then they'll give plus or minus from that. So the optimum tilt may be 15, and then they'll tell you that it's plus or minus 15 from that. It's still pretty good. So if we start going, let's say we go east, right? The sun's not straight on. So if we go halfway, so it's sort of south by southeast, is our arrays pointing that way. For 10, we get 90 degrees. You can't see it, but I think it's right there is 90. For 15, you get 91, and for 20, you get 92. So 90 through 92, that's still a pretty good percentage, right? Out of 100 for solar. So we're actually going toward south. We're going toward the east from the south. Now, if you go straight east, you can see these numbers. You get for 212, you get 85%, 86% for the 312, and and back down to 85%. That's interesting, huh? So you're still in 86%, even if you're straight east. And that's, you're going to not get as much sun, not make as much money. But we're only talking about 86% of what you would make. So I think that's pretty remarkable. And the west is fairly parallel to that. Does everybody see that? So at the way we make our roofs, and of course you could pick that up if you tilted your roof, put something on to make it tilt exactly to these higher angles, you get more as you get closer to the 35 degrees. But you could have one that looks good that goes flat on your roof in this area, because these are the kind of the standard roof shapes, and still get, anywhere from 85 to 98%. So that's pretty good. We live in a pretty good area that way. We happen to be, close enough to we're closer to the equator than northern United States. The southern United States has pretty good solar insulation. Has everybody got that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot more flexible in terms of what kind of energy we can get than people think. Okay, so here's some problems with shading. When you put on when someone comes out and says you want solar on your house, and you contract with a company, they come out, because sometimes you may not have enough open roof space that's angled the right way to make it worthwhile. And they'll tell you that. They'll go, look, we really don't want to do it here because you would be paying a lot for not so much return. So the orientation of the roof obviously makes a difference. Although, like I tell you, I'm putting some on the north roof of mine, but it's a flat enough roof. It's going to get it's going to get probably 85%, 80% maybe. And I'm willing to do that. But these are the things that do it: chimneys, plumbing penetrations, vents. For every bathroom and kitchen, if they don't combine them, you'll have separate vents. You'll have exhaust ducts. In the attic, you'll have attic hatches. I don't know why they put that there. But in old houses, you may have, no, it's still inside the attic, uncapped wall cavities, so we're not worried about that. But a lot of stuff penetrates your roof, and it makes it impossible. You can't cover those things up. So it makes it hard to put solar panels on. And then if you have someone to the south of you, or whichever way you're facing, either your own building or a neighbor's, they can block the sunlight for part of your roof too. That happens. Cities have solar laws that say you can't obstruct past a certain percentage. They're not very good, especially because a lot of places, our homes are built real close together, and there's really no way to prevent that. So that rule is good for some places and not others. Okay, so let's go on to photovoltaic cells. So the cell is the smallest unit, and then they put those units together to make a module. We used to call these panels, but the more technical term now is a module. They're about 3 to 4 feet this way and 2.5 feet this way. And then they go on a roof together, and that's called an array. And they have the top layer of all these cells is a crystalline structure that has basically silicone, but the silicone's peppered with boron atoms. And these have, no, that's the bottom row. Sorry, this is the top row. The sun hits here first. And these silicone crystals have phosphorus atoms interspersed. This is a slightly different color. You can't see it. But the phosphorus atoms, the silicone atoms are pretty stable. They've got 4 electrons, and they're all in the same orbit. And that's a pretty stable thing. It's sand, right? How much more stable can you get? But phosphorus has an extra electron in the shell, and it's pretty jumpy. So if it gets any kind of stimulation from radiation, it'll jump ship. So on the top layer, you have this with extra electrons vulnerable. When a photovoltaic photon from the sun, a little packet of energy hits the surface here, if it hits one of these, it'll knock it out. It gives it enough energy that that electron can't hold on. It'll break away. And then on the other side is a negative plate. So these electrons all get together as they're knocked off and create a current that goes around your house and comes back to this plate. You know, it's from a positive plate to a negative plate. And then this layer has boron atoms spiked in it, which have a hole. They're not stable because they are always looking for an electron to fill this hole. And of course, that's really convenient because then the electrons that have come around from the phosphorus atoms find a hole here and it completes the circuit. So that's how they get electrical energy from sun rays. Pretty nifty, huh? They discovered that when they were first analyzing radiation in the 1800s, they discovered that when sun hit metal, because scientists were always looking around and trying to figure out what created, you know, lightning or any kind of sparks. And they would put different materials in front of the sun, you know, below, and then they would see if they had any charge. And they found out that metal things got charged by the sun. They would send off a current, and it wouldn't go anywhere because there had to be it had to be set up with a negative charge. But they could see the current created, and so then they started monkeying around which atoms did the made the most current, what particular chemicals, and then which current could absorb, and then they just made the cell from there. So it was a lot of science that happened in a row, but it's just pretty remarkable. Okay, now we didn't talk much about, we talk about grid tied utility. So there's basically two types: type tied to the grid, which they call utility interactive or grid tied systems. You have your array, it creates DC energy. And if you want that to go straight to your house runs on AC energy. Your plugs that you plug in is AC energy. So it has to go to an inverter, which we talked about. And that changes the wavelength to AC, and then it can go into your house, and the extra can go into the grid, into the meter, and be saved on the grid. So that's how that most people have a grid tied system. That's how that works. They need one appliance, which is called an inverter. No.
Patrick,
Yes.
I just have a question. This is
You
probably
can see. Wait. You can see this, can't you?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What was your question?
This is probably a silly question, but I just wanted to know why do we need like permits in order to install solar panels if we are doing an upgrade to our homes?
Because
I understand that.
Because the building department, the government feels, and I don't think this is necessarily wrong, they may go about it the wrong way sometimes, but they feel it's their duty to protect the people of the country. That's in our Constitution. The Constitution, the government's there to protect people. That comes all the way down to local level with a local government, which is our building department. They're protecting us. So the biggest thing they worry about, the biggest thing that happens to humans is they get electrocuted or their houses catch on fire. That's by far the biggest problems. So they want to make sure the electrical is done right. So you can do all the photovoltaic, you have to get it permitted, but you can do all the work, but you have to have a licensed electrician make the final hookup. And then the inspector will inspect that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you have to be a professional electrician because they're afraid someone will wire it wrong and they'll create a spark and the house will go up in fire and the whole neighborhood will burn down.
Yeah.
So if you look at the building code in general for the state of California, it's mostly fire oriented. That's the biggest fear governments have because fires get started so easily.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so a lot of the code is to keep that away from people. You'll find that's more than structural damage there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. And Germany, in Germany, they didn't require inspectors. Now this, when I went there, was about 5 years ago on this school tour. And as I believe, they didn't require government approval for that. It's interesting, huh? And Germany's a very rule-oriented society, so I don't know why they did away with that. I think they were trying to get as much solar as they could right away, and they didn't want to slow it down in any way. So, yeah, but our country, we do that. So then if we want, like we have a cabin, one of us here has a cabin up in the woods, and we're not going to go through the grid. They call those systems standalone, grid tied and then standalone, which means they stand alone from the grid. And these can do DC only, which goes straight from your array to your appliances or battery, but the electrical configuration of this energy may not be right for your battery or your DC appliances. You know, campers and cabins often can have DC appliances. The lights can be DC. Before solar became big, there was a lot of DC stuff because people wanted to go camping a lot, or kids wanted, lesser power. So they just carry that industry over to people who didn't want to be tied to the grid. However, much of our appliances and things are AC. They're built for AC. The more interesting involved ones are AC. So even if you have a camp or somewhere where you want to have AC power, then you have to have an inverter also. So you need a charge controller. And with the charge controller, so when you are standalone and you don't have the grid to give you energy at night when the sun's not shining, then you need to store that energy. So you're going to store it in batteries. You need this charge controller to make sure the batteries get they sink into the array. It's really ingenious, but these just take this energy and put it in the right configuration that the battery can take. So then it's in your battery stored. So if you had DC appliances, you could just go from there to the appliances. But if you have AC appliances, then you have to go from the battery. It's still DC. You need it AC. So then you go to an inverter and that goes to AC. So if you're standalone, you need these two devices. And sometimes they will come in a single device, but you need what's called a charge controller and an inverter. Yeah?
Yes.
So sometimes you can do it like, the bus stops that have lights, have solar panels on them, if they have a little roof, they work like this. There's an array, a small array on top. It has to store in the battery because the lights work all night long, in those bus things. And so it goes through an inverter stored in a battery. So they don't need an inverter. They have a DC load, DC light. That's how those work. So if you just have, a well pump or a bus stop light or, a fan and a light, you don't need an inverter. You could keep it on DC and just make sure you have DC appliances here. Then you've only got an array, a charge controller, battery if you need it at night. If you don't need it at night, you can go from here to the charge controller straight to DC equipment. The bus stop needs it at night, so they need to have a storage unit. And I think they have, all this is compressed in that little array you see on top. Let's see. Oh, so we just went through this. This is another picture from another book. I want to show you solar electric modules can be used to build carports, and we have those at school. I think that's one of the tickets to the future, especially when we have electric cars. We don't even have to go into the house. We can plug them right into these panels. I tried to get like I said, the development I live in to do this, but the city said we couldn't put in our driveway because we need that setback from the street for some. weird reason.
It's gonna look like that and everything.
Well, I was gonna design them more Mediterranean style, so they would match the houses. And you could do, and since Mediterranean has a lot of gables, you could do a gable one in your driveway or a shed one. You could take your pick, but they would have, the posts would be bigger and wooden, painted white, like the houses, white or tan or something. Yeah, you could do it so it matches the architecture of the neighborhood. These are really great. The Earth Day Festival we used to have in Santa Barbara. Well, we still have. One year when these were big, they came out, and across the street there, where the children's playground is, that side of the park, they had a bunch of people come, companies come in and show off their solar carports, and they were really great. They had wrought iron, really cool wrought iron things. And I was really excited, but it hasn't gone very far. And this is just a picture of a community in Canada, which has solar electric and solar heating on their garages. These are their garages across the alley. And they just pack those houses, those babies up, so they get all their electricity and heat from these arrays. Cool, huh? We could do that. It's done all around the world. We just haven't, we're not thinking. And then these are a couple of other solar arrays. This really goes with the solar heating, but this is a solar cooker. And it's like a what do you call this? What do you call that curve? Parabola. It's a parabola cooker, so that these things are at an angle to each other that the sun hits, and all the rays, whatever they hit, they bounce toward the center and heat this pot. We have big utility level cookers like this. They have giant sand containers, and the sun comes and heats those. One blew up out in Barstow a few years back. It got so hot, but they heat the salt because it really absorbs and it's less dangerous. And then we have these trough linear type concentrator collectors. Same thing, the sun bounces off these and bounces from below different times of day and hits the center. And they put different things, salt, what do they have? They have different substances they put in these that are heated. They've been experimenting with things, but this is when you have a utility solar field and it's not a circle, it's like this. So these are the two types. I have a circular one or a parabolic one, and then a linear one. Okay. Let's do this solar heating first, and then we'll look at what the book has. Everybody hanging in there?
Yeah, we're good.
Yep.
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 So this is the solar. So we're done with PV. And now we're going to go on to another kind of solar energy. And this is the cover of another book, in case you want to know where this stuff comes from. These are solar hot water panels. And we've had these since the 70s. In the 70s, they were all homemade. We just made them and put them up. And then they got very sophisticated. We still don't do this. The rest of the world, China, India, Europe, all has solar hot water panels on their roof. And they have their collectors, a little tank that collects the water when it's heated as a unit. You see those units all over. And they just get all their hot water from solar. Now, because hot water is heated, solar hot water is heated during the day, you couldn't, unless you had a really insulated hot water tank, you couldn't use it after it got cool for a while, right? It would just cool off. So people have to take their baths and showers and do their dishes, from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So you couldn't get an early morning hot shower from this situation, but most countries have just altered their lifestyles to fit this. But heating water is cheaper by the sun directly warming it than it is to use electricity to do it. The heat pumps are an exception because they use a different kind of electrical energy. They use that heat pump technology. So that's become a new thing. But before that, electrical heat was expensive. Gas heat was cheap. But this is so much more efficient to just heat pipes and the cool liquid comes in. This is like a, what do you call it? A manifold, where all the pipes are connected to these two pipes. And so the coal goes into each one and then it comes out. And then they have the loop ones, serpentine ones, where this is the way we used to build it, just continuous. You put a black, this is looking down on it, you put a black background, you just paint the box black. You put copper tubes on this, paint those black, and put a clear lid on it, and it cooks. The black heat gets absorbed by the pipes and the water just fries. So these are great little things. The book's got some cool pictures we'll look at in a second. So there's two types of systems here. A direct system means it uses the water that comes off the collector is used directly for heating, and it goes to a hot water tank. Most of the time, these go to a hot water tank because if it's cloudy or for some reason this can't heat it up, you can top it off with a regular heater. So that's kind of been the way we've done it. And that way you could take a shower in the morning because you would heat it, you'd top it off. It's basically hot, but it needs a little bit of rise in temperature, and then you can get the electric or gas to finish it off. But then there's another system. So this system has water in these pipes, right? Underneath this are those pipes you saw. But the problem is if the temperature gets freezing outside, the pipes will burst. The copper pipes will burst, the joints will burst in the freezing, and so you can't do that. So they originally had drain valves, and you would manually drain the system at night if you knew it was going to freeze. So that's inconvenient. You have to always be on if you're away from home for a few days. You got to make sure it's drained, and so that's a little more labor intensive. So then people got sensors on that, and when the sensor said it was getting toward freezing, it would open the drain and it would all drain out. So that was an improvement because then you didn't have to be around. And then they came up with another system, and that's called an indirect system because you don't actually use the water that comes off the thing. The water goes in and with a heat exchanger, the water comes in and it heats up. It comes into this exchanger and it heats. Wait, let me take that back. This fluid is antifreeze, some kind of form of antifreeze. So it can't freeze in freezing weather. So it can operate all the time. But you can't mix antifreeze with your domestic hot water, right? Because it's poisonous. So they have the antifreeze just circulate in a coil and then come up, get warmed again, circulate in a coil. And then you have domestic hot water around that coil, and the two systems are separate. And then you can just use that water hot. So you've got a direct system and an indirect system, okay? Then there's a thing called a batch heater, a batch collector. And sometimes these have storage where they can store a lot of the heat up here. And we'll see versions of that. That's what I was telling you about in Europe, where the storage and the panel are all one unit. Then we have the use for the solar hot water. There's pools in Santa Barbara, which we're going to go on a field trip at some point, maybe this week. I haven't figured out what I want to do yet, but there's a couple of places that have. One place has this on the actual building, and another place that has it on pergolas around the pool. Has a solar collector. So the whole pool heating is done by solar energy, and it comes down and goes into the pool. Sometimes it's filtered, sometimes not. So that's pretty cool. It's a real cheap way to heat a pool. I mean, you pay for that in no time, that whole unit, because you can imagine how much heat swimming pools take and jacuzzis. So it can be done with a ground mount thing, and Do people use these kind of pools anymore? These above ground pools? Any of you got these for your kids at any point?
No.
No, man, one person with kids, huh? Yeah, they
Yeah.
used to, when I grew up in the
I'm
50s and 60s, this was big. Everybody get one of these. They were either little tiny ones like that you could step over, or they were pretty good size, you know. And they would kill the grass underneath. And then when you'd fold these up in the winter, the grass would stink for weeks. Dead grass. Oh, you had to have been there. Such a thrill. But we never heated them. We just had them. But you know, if you can't afford a swimming pool, it's great for kids. Okay, so let's go before we go to solar space heating. Let's look at our book. So do y'all have your book with you?
Yes.
Yes.
So it was chapter 13, page 251 was the unit I wanted you to read for this. And we've seen a lot of this stuff, tracking the sun as pages go by. Oh yeah, go to page 252, the second page in that unit. You see that house at the bottom there?
Yes.
So you see that the infrastructure, the framework that holds those panels up on the top. See how that
Yes.
looks?
Yes.
It's not the most beautiful thing. This is a demonstration house, so I don't think they cared. But that's why you try to get the slope. This is in Colorado, so it's probably, they probably have to get better. Or if they want to get the most maximum efficiency, then you have to put those up to the right tilt. There's an example. Okay, and the next page, 254, shows a batch collector. And it's not on a roof, it's on the ground, it's a ground mount. But see, it's got the holding tank above it. And it's pretty sleek looking in some ways, but the panels look sleek and the tank looks sleek, but then you got all this piping that goes around. So they didn't take the form boards off the forms. It's not done. It's a work in progress, right? Then on page,
Lowest bid, right, Patrick?
what's that?
That's the lowest bid.
Yeah, you got it. I don't see anything else in here. There's somebody who's interested in those film collectors. So on page 258, there's a picture of those, that green film that goes on. Those are metal standing seam roofs. And so you can put that film right on there.
Are those just as effective?
No, the efficiency is about half of a panel. But if you don't like the looks of panels, you can do that, and it's less noticeable. The idea is that there's a solution for everybody. On across the thing on 259, those are hot water heaters, and they're cranked up at an angle. Sometimes you don't have a choice. You live in a house that was built in the pre-solar era, and you got to take the roof and the angles and the orientation as it comes, right? So, hopefully you can make it look nice for your neighbors. But like I said, this town's pretty good in terms of the tilt angle. The orientation, you still have to kind of line up some. On 260, there's another batch collector. And that one doesn't have pumps in it because the water heats in the pipes and it automatically goes up. Hot water will expand and go up and it goes into the tank. And then it's up on a second story, so, or a roof, I don't know what that is. So it can gravity feed things. Okay, so then there's a bunch of photovoltaic stuff. Yeah, then again on 264, there's a picture of a house with PV panels, and they're pushed up by a framework. So you can see that doesn't look as good as if it was flat on the roof. And I think that's it for the book, because we've looked at some of that before. So, so make sure you ask me questions along the way. I know some of you have been. So get out that handout today. Let's see, oh yeah. While you're looking at this, so here's a just a little diagram of what we're going to be talking about. So passive solar uses a lot of glass, and they call it fenestration in the business. In the code, they call it fenestration. So you just have to get used to that word. They use a lot of glass, but if you have a lot of glass to let a lot of sun in for passive solar, but you don't have any thermal mass that absorbs that heat, then your atmosphere is going to absorb it, and it's going to be sweltering hot inside, and it will be useless. So if you're going to use passive solar and use that wonderful sun we have and that wonderful clear glass we've figured out how to make, you have to put mass where it's going to hit. So if you have a concrete floor that's 4 inches thick, that's really good. That's just what you need. Sometimes you can use a wall, to maximize, to get the more thermal mass, the more glass you can have. So the wall needs to be about 4 inches thick too. So you could put stone, you could put a stone veneer or bricks. There's a lot of masonry you could use, or you could just put a concrete wall that's 4 inches thick. Or you could put drywall, multiple layers. Put 3/4 inch layers, put as many as it makes sense. And that will also act as a thick thermal mass. Okay, so you got 3 situations here that we're going to talk about. One is the sun coming through and heating a floor that doesn't have a carpet on it. And so these numbers are the ratio of window square footage to floor square footage. And I'll explain that in a second. The second number, no, this bottom number rather, is also for floors, but it's floors that are not lit up. So it takes the photons that are bounced around the walls and things. And indirectly, this is 5 to 1, this is 40 to 1. It loses a lot of its opportunity, but it still has some, okay? So if all you have are floors where the sun doesn't hit, then that for every foot you add to the window, you have to add 40 square feet of room, which is what's 40 square feet? 6.5 by 6, 6.5 by 6.5. So 6 by 6. That's not a huge area. It sounds like a lot, but it's square feet. So now let's go to that handout that I sent out today. Oh, darn. Silly me.
Patrick, did you attach it to the email or something like that?
Yeah. God, I
Okay.
hope I did. Did anybody get it?
I didn't see an attachment, but I could be wrong.
I may have sent you. Did you get the email?
Yeah, I got
Got the email, but no
I didn't get any
attachment.
Okay, I forgot.
No
Yeah, I forgot.
attachment.
Stuff happens, so I will send that to you to have, but we can do mine. We can share mine for right now. Okay. Sorry about that. That happens. So. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah,
So this is
Yeah.
what I sent you, and I'll send it again.
Yeah.
So there's formulas for passive solar. Now, I've got a whole book on passive solar. And it's got a lot of information. It's really great. So, and I'll show you what that is actually on your handouts. It's the last picture of a cover. It's called the Solar House, but we'll talk about that later. And that'll be at school for you to look at too. So a normal house has its maximum fenestration is allows for every square foot of glass, you can have 15 square feet of you have to have 15 square feet of floor. So that's the maximum. If you have more glass than that 15 feet or less floor than the 15 feet, you've got too much. You've got too much glass. But anyway, we're starting from there. Then for every foot above that, for every square foot of glass you want to add to that, you have to add 5.5 square feet of uncovered. Remember we said uncovered lit. Sun have to shine right on it. Floor that's at least 4 inches thick, which most slabs are. So, and we're going to do an example below that'll explain how that works out mathematically. So if you only have unlit floor, also uncovered, when it's covered by carpets and mats and stuff, it doesn't work very well because that impedes the heat from getting into the mass. If you have unlit floor, then you have to allow 40 extra square feet for every foot you add. That's a lot, right? So you're best off if you have lit floor, obviously. But then there's another thing. If the sun hits your wall, and there's a controversy about whether it has to be lit or unlit. Some people say it has to be lit, others say it can be either. But anyway, for every square foot of window, you have to have 8.3 square feet of wall thickness. Now, since walls are 8 feet high, you could have 1 foot wide, right? By 8 high would satisfy this. So to add, but that's for each square foot of window, you'd have to add a foot floor to ceiling thermal mass. So you could have, part of that wall be covered by stones or bricks or something. So let's look at an example. So if you have obviously you're going to have a room bigger than 6 by 10, but well, you could have a 6 by 10 small bedroom, it's not unheard of. But I use this example because it was easy to work with. So this has 60 square feet, right? 6 by 10. So this floor is 60 square feet. And if we divide by 15, because the ratio is 1 to 15 here. Divide by 15, that means we need 4 square feet of window. So the maximum window we could have for a 6 by 10 room, and this doesn't have a concrete floor. This can be any kind of surface. It's just they're starting with this. So this figure here, 1/15 or 7% ratio is for any kind of room. So for this size room, 6 by 10, we have to have at least a 2 by 2 window. Then that's not very big. So if we want a bigger window, for every square foot that we add to that 2 by 2, we have to have an additional 5.5 square feet of lit floor. This time the floor has to be lit if you're only adding 5.5 square feet. So since that's square feet, if we added a foot to the length, that would give us 1 times 6. That would be 6 square feet. So we added a foot, that would allow us another foot of window, right? If we wanted 2 more feet of window, so it'd make it a 3 by 2 window, we'd have to double this. We'd have to have 11 square feet, right? If we had 11 square feet, we'd have to add another foot here, so it'd be a 6 by 12 room at that point. So for a 2x3 window, we'd have to have a 6x12 floor, a lit floor area. Now, if you're adding a square foot to that 2x2 window to unlit floor, you'd need 40 square feet, which is the square root of that 6 something, right? 6.3, say. So then you add 6.3 to the 10, and you get 16 and a half, say, by 6. 6 by 16 and a half floor area. So you have to really, almost well, 1.5, maybe a little more than 1.5 times the length of this room. So that's a lot of floor for just that little bit of extra window. But if you don't have the sun hitting the floor everywhere, and you're not with a 2x2 window, then that's what you have to do. Then in terms of the wall, if you want to add a square foot to the 2x2 window, you have to have 8 square feet of wall, of 4 inches thick, something masonry. And same floor, you wouldn't have to change the floor, but you'd have to have a little tenth of this length of the wall, floor to ceiling, or the back wall, probably better, with a 4-inch thick thermal mass. So you see how that works? If you stay within these parameters, you won't get any overheating. But that's what a lot of people do when they space heat with solar, is they don't understand the mass window ratio, thermal mass window ratio. It's really important. The masses heat up, the floor or the wall. They heat up all day long, and then they hold that heat. And they hold the heat so the atmosphere isn't that hot. It's warm, it's nice. But the heat's really in the thermal mass. And then as the sun sets, the heat goes out from the mass, goes toward cold. So it'll go toward the window. And eventually, depending on how much mass you have and how cold it is outside, eventually you lose all the heat in your walls somewhere in the night. And then you've got to deal with that if you have passive solar. So
Is this assuming, excuse me, is this assuming a dual pane window or any type of window?
yeah, this is just the glass, the glazing. You're asking if you could do a special window with
Well, is this what, because nowadays everybody installs the double pane or the dual glazed windows, right?
the double pane and the what do you call it?
So I didn't know if that would eliminate some of that heat.
Very little. It does eliminate some, but over the course of a night, it's not really enough. Now,
Okay.
if you have, like in Montana, people have triple pane windows with E-coating. That's the word I was looking
Right.
for. Where was that in my brain? Have E-coating, and that's about as much as you can do. They have super windows, and they're really great, but they're still, maybe an R15 at the most for the
Okay.
window. And a cold Montana night in the winter, that's not going to keep you enough heat from staying. Now, in the old days, when we started doing using windows for passive heat, we just put a curtain across it at sunset, and the curtain had a Velcro edge. So we Velcroed it tight to all 4 edges and left it till the morning. And that curtain, it would have, it would have a curtain, a room compatible curtain on the outside, and then on the inside it would have some kind of reflective surface. So that works, but people didn't want to have to Velcro down their curtains at night. So the thing about Americans is we're not very interested in doing any extra work. So we pay money to allow us to do that. So we'll come up with all kinds of alternatives to just pulling a curtain and making sure it's Velcroed. But that's who we are. A lot of places, don't have the money. A lot of third world countries have all kinds of things they use to retain heat. It's a real science. We've got it to science now. You can see this has been worked out pretty well. And we can design these pretty well. Now, let me show you some alternative space heating schemes besides just letting the sun in, right? Well, they all involve letting the sun in, but this lets the sun in, and all you've got is a masonry floor or masonry walls for the thermal mass. Now, there's a whole bunch of alternatives to thermal mass, and we've got them on our handout. So first one here is putting a actual wall behind the window. Doesn't do a lot for your view. So that's one of the main problems here. But what happens is then it's got vents. So the wall heats up from the glass. It's a thermal wall. And then the vents, the hot air in here goes into the room, and then the cool air from the room comes in, gets heated. And if you want the hot air to stay in here, you have to block the heat from the mass from going outside at night. So sometimes they'll have a little wall in the middle that they can push from one end to the other. But again, that's a little bit of work. They have water walls, and we used to call the water and the concrete trom walls, but this book calls just the water wall a trom wall. Oh no, they call the cement a trom wall, and they call these I don't know, water walls. Yeah, water wall. But they're big containers of water. Now, water absorbs heat faster than concrete, but it also gives it off faster. So they use water, which they have a little bit of, usually they had color in them for some reason, but you can see through the water and you can see the light. So that's a little, at least you're getting some light into your room. But the same problem, see here they show that at night, daytime it absorbs the heat. At night, the heat goes into the room, but it also goes this way. So they've got to figure out a way to stop the heat from going back out, right? What they're doing is they're putting mass in and that'll be heated the whole length of the window because it's up next to the window. Whereas if you have a masonry wall or a floor you're relying on, because of the angles of the sun, you're not going to get that lit a lot of the day. So this is more efficient, but you don't have a view. Another solution using solar space heating is to use a sun space. And that heats up, goes through that space and heats up this wall, and you leave that door open, and the heat goes into the house by convection. And there's a thermal mass here that gets hot and it gives off heat. And then this way you can close that door at night and keep a lot of the heat inside. So sun spaces are pretty good. You need extra land and that kind of porch, but these are actually a really good solution. When I was in Denmark with that tour I went on, we looked at a place that experimented with a lot of solar and wind and photovoltaic stuff. And they had a conference area where they had visitors and they held conferences in it. All around the whole thing was like a porch. You could go inside and walk around it, but it was glass like this around the whole perimeter of the building. It was a round building. And they said that kept it warm all the time. That's all they needed. So these have been tried and proven. And again, like Era said, the better glass to retard the heat is always helpful. Nowadays we have that. Another thing that I witnessed in Maine when I lived there was an envelope house. And I don't think these are built much anymore, although they may have a more contemporary version of it. But they would build a house and then they would build a house inside of the house. So it's kind of like that porch we just saw, except you're building a, a little shell, you're building a little airspace all around the house. And the air would circulate like this during the winter and keep the house going. And I knew people that had these in Maine, and they were warm all year round. They had plants growing inside in the winter with no additional heat than just, they had trees. They had an orange tree and some other stuff. They actually grew fruit. And the Rocky Mountain Institute, which is an energy think tank in the Rockies near Aspen, outside of Aspen, Snowmass. The guy who does it, Avery Lovins, lived there, and his wife before they separated, Hunter Lovins. But they've written a lot of books on energy. They're really great, soft energy. They're really great people. But their house slash office was like this, and he had banana trees that grew year round. He harvested
For their fruit,
bananas.
would they pull them outside so that they could get pollinated?
That I don't know. You're the first person that ever asked that question. They would have an answer because the trees live, so they must have done something.
Hmm.
And that's a really good question. So banana trees have to be pollinated every year, right?
I think most fruit trees have to be
Yeah.
pollinated.
Okay, that's a great question. I'll see if I can find that. It'd be hard to find because, people are so impressed by the fact that you can even grow something in the winter that they don't even ask those kind of questions.
They probably drag them outside for the rest of the year and then just drag them inside for the winter.
Could very well be.
Or you could open up the windows during bloom time.
Yeah.
All the screens, attract some bees,
Put signs
get
up,
some-
bees here, butterflies here, yeah.
some lavender and some,
Yeah. Maybe I could email the guy probably. He'd probably answer me. That's pretty funny. I've never seen a documentary or anything on those, just those. It's all part of his theorizing, and that's just kind of thrown in to show how cool it is. So here's another collector, we'll call him, mounted on the roof, and it's just an Edclex, and probably the same way as the water ones do, with some kind of dark absorbing pipes, maybe big thick plastic pipes, and then that's just fan down right into the room. And there's a wall mount one if you have sun, on the side. So those, I have never seen one of these in person, but I would wager that Scandinavia and Europe probably uses these. They always use a lot more of the available technology than we do. We get stuck on one like photovoltaics, and we do that forever. Now I think we might have even discovered solar hot water and batch heaters, and we should have pursued that. We could have been the world manufacturer of those because we started so early. And it's pretty simple technology. We could have experimented and gotten a really good thing. But we don't even use it very much. So we need to use that because it's even more free and it's more low tech, black paint. And I mean, they make high tech ones, but we could get down to really simple ones, whereas photovoltaics are very complicated machines, God bless them anyway. And then I put these in for Lewis, these pictures. Or somebody else. Actually, it was probably
it's Diego.
yeah, Diego, yes. And
What are those?
Is that a green roof?
Zach Higgins, maybe. But Diego for sure. Yeah, it's a green roof.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't know. This was just in the book, so I did it. I don't know what. We'll get some pictures of green roofs when we do alternate building. We'll get a lot more pictures. This was in the book, so I threw it in. And then a green wall.
Oh, yes.
Now that's becoming quite a thing. In fact,
Yeah.
we had students at City College come to me. I think they were in one of Adam Green's classes, and said, "Could you help us build a green wall? We want to put a display in the library on main campus." So all of us, I helped them, but all the kids made frames for these green walls that could move on wheels, And we took them over to the library, and for a couple of years, we had a display. It was really cool.
They look cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of this going on. I mean, we'll show you. I mean, you've probably seen them all over the world. Skyscrapers are putting trees and green walls all up and down. I mean, it's really the urban horticulture has bloomed, you know, excuse the pun. It's really come into its own, and we'll have a lot of stuff to show about that later on because it goes along with the the alternate building. But that's going to help save us utilizing the nooks and crannies of cities, because that's where we're all ending up, you know.
Mhm.
And then for daylighting, which was another, I think that was a topic for today too. I didn't do a lot on that. Let's see. Yeah. And I'd like to find some daylighting. Anybody know of a place that's got a lot of interior light because of windows that we could go visit? So anyway, daylighting, we talked about it with the solar tube, but it's just a way of getting more light in a building so you don't need to use electrical lighting, save that juice. And so obviously you got to have windows, and you need windows up high. You need windows that sort of track the sun. You know, the sun's coming from higher than lower, unless you live in the tropics. Or I mean, way up north, it might be here, but tropics would be up here. Tropics would be here. And then we have, like, at my house, we had, what do you call them? Anybody? Skylights. So you can have a skylight that just sends the sun down. You can have a skylight next to a wall, so the sun banks off that wall. Paint it nice and reflective white, or just white. And you get that. That's a lot of, you know, when the photons come in, they'll hit the wall at different places, and they'll just spray this area with light. It's not just one, it's not lighting up this spot. When light reflects, it refracts them too, and it goes a lot of areas. Here's the idea of a solar tube. The light bounces off the walls. This is just a skylight with a deep well, and the walls are white, so the light makes its way down, the indirect light. But in a solar tube, like in my house, I've looked at, they're metal, shiny metal, flexible metal tubing. And so the light really bounces off that. So, yeah, here, you know, you want to have to make sure the most sun can get in. If you have your window too low, it's going to miss a lot of that sun. Then sometimes that's for solar heating. Sometimes we don't want the sun. It's making it too hot. So we'll put there's a whole discussion about shading, on-house shading structures, you know, to stop the summer sun, which is usually higher, so you can stop it from coming in and overheating, yet the winter sun will get underneath it and provide enough warmth. So that's the whole thing of how big to make these and where to put them. And here's a pergola where the sun comes, the superstructure kind of blocks a lot of the sun, so it comes in underneath, or might come in a little bit as in a pattern there. Then blinds, and they have electrical blinds, especially on skylights where you can't reach them, that control these. If you live in a place where the sun's really intense, certain times of the year or certain times of the day, you don't want to allow the sun in. These are like the double blinds I showed you at my house. There's all kinds of shade schemes for blocking sun when it's too hot and allowing it when it's not. Here's the solar tube. You can see it's metal. That's what the top looks like. It's got a boot like anything. It's got to go at an angle. So it's got a boot and a plastic top. And then the metal just bounces the light down into the room. Okay. So,
Oh, you know the art museum, they did a renovation and they put a lot of different, they claim to have all these LED building
yeah, what library?
concepts. Well, no, the Museum of Santa Barbara Museum of Art. I
Really?
just was there. They did that first Thursdays, you know, they have the free night there.
Thursday
The
night's
first Thursday
free?
of the month, for the month. The
Oh,
first Thursday of the
man.
month.
Well, that Van Gogh exhibit's gonna be a couple months there, isn't it?
Oh, probably.
Because I want to see that. And I don't think it opened
Oh,
yet.
really?
Well, the first
When is
Thursday of
that?
March. It's
Yeah.
free.
Okay,
But
great.
anyway,
March
but you
1st
won't
is
see
free?
that.
Yeah,
The Thursday, the first, I don't know if it's
Okay.
March 1st.
okay, I'll figure it out.
But during the day, there's a lot of skylights,
Yeah,
large scale.
they've always
They
had those,
just-
right?
Right.
Yeah, it's
But
it's
I
pretty
think
in there.
they've added even more.
Okay, you know, that
So,
would be a great place to go to see daylighting. Actually,
yeah, because it's all from the roof.
yeah, I'll see if I can get us in free on a Saturday as an educational thing.
Yeah, because they did, it's a
And we
whole
just get a
little
bunch of things
timeline.
downtown. Yeah, maybe we'll do it
Yeah.
during the Van Gogh exhibit.
There you go.
That would be great.
Cheat our way through. Yeah, you know,
No,
people love,
they emphasize green, you know, energy,
oh, well, let's
using green
go.
energy for
Oh,
the.
great, thanks. Let's do that as one of our things, sure. No,
What if you
we
like
just,
art?
well, yeah, but it's, you know, you don't have to like art. It's a way we're using
No,
that.
but the building itself, I mean, they did a lot of different,
Yeah,
and they have to rely on light, you know, ambient
Yes.
light.
yes. You know, the Guggenheim Museum in New York, the one that's a
Right.
spiral.
Circle, yeah,
I wonder how, if that, is that lit from the outside? Oh, no, the center's got a big
center
skylight,
in the
doesn't it?
middle.
The whole roof is, yeah. Maybe we could
Mhm.
make a trip to New York and go to the Guggenheim.
There you
That'd
go.
really be bitching. I love it. See if the school will write it. I'll support us. Yeah, right. Well, okay, that's great. Let me pursue that. If any of you guys have, like, that's what I was asking about, is places that use daylighting, because those are harder to find. Solar panels are easy to find. You know, we could go to that, and we could go to the school solar panel,
Mhm.
you know, on West Campus. We could combine that with we're gonna make several trips to the school, everybody. The school has some stuff to look at, plus we're gonna try to hook up with Mike. I gave him an email, I haven't heard back. He's doing a cob structure, so that's one of our last units, but we're gonna go whenever it's convenient for him, his class. So it may be right away for all I know. But, you know, if we go to school, we maybe could combine that with something else, or maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, on a Saturday afternoon, right? The
Yeah,
30th.
yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of
Trying to think
Saturdays
of-
left, so maybe we can find out. But, you know, I used to have a lot of places to go, and then over the years, they would change, like Hayward Lumber had a design center across from Talco on, what was that street? One up from, what's up from Garden?
Oh, on Olives,
Laguna?
Laguna, thank you.
Oh, Laguna.
Laguna
Yeah.
between Haley and Gutierrez.
Or
Yeah, it was the one
Olivos.
going, yeah, it was not Haley, but,
there's Olivos.
oh, maybe it's Haley, what?
Olivos, right by Arnaldi's, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that had a lot of great stuff just in the building, the architecture. They did a great job, but then they sold it. So I don't go there anymore. So it's hard to find places unless I get, you know, unless people help me. So that's a good help. So I'll keep working on it. So if you know of anything that's sustainable in town that you happen to, you know, come across, let me know and we'll see if we can plug that into a field trip.
Well,
'Cause
what
that's what
about that Santa Barbara County building off of
Oh.
Calle Real?
Yeah, we could do that. We
Or
could
is
see
that kind of
too.
weird? Just office buildings?
No, it's a good example. It's got a lot of sustainable stuff. It may even have a green roof on part of it. I used to work with a county organization that was based there. I think they're still there. They'd love to see me. I haven't seen him for a while. And so, yeah, I'll call that guy. That's great. Let me write that down.
What about the UCSB environmental science building?
Yeah, okay. I'll see if I can get a tour. I know a lot of people there too. We could do their whole their whole heating and cooling structure because it's pretty remarkable. And they will give a tour if I can find someone that's available. Let me look into that. That's a great field trip. You know, I haven't done this class for so many years that I've, I stopped doing, contacting these people. Let's see.
I've always heard of, the Bren Center and all, but I haven't
Yeah.
been in there.
Yeah, the Bren Center doesn't have a lot.
Okay.
But and there may be some stuff in the architecture. They have some displays there that we can look at. But if we get a guide that knows the area, he'll take us, like the building next to Bryn on the corner where the library is, that's I don't know, marine biology maybe or something. What is that corner structure?
Well, there's the engineering building right
No, it's
by the
not-
roundabout. but-
Biology is the one that you're thinking of.
Ecology, marine ecology
No, marine biology is the
Marine biology.
one.
on the corner there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was done by, what was that contractor in town who went out of business, went bankrupt?
I don't know.
Oh,
It was done by.
no, it's,
Got an Italian name. What's his name?
yeah, not Marburgen. It was,
Yeah.
I
I'll
don't
think
know,
of
I
it.
can't remember it.
But he was working on that building. Somebody else had to finish it. He went bankrupt. It's a cool building, but if we get that in the tour, they'll show how an office building uses a lot of cool stuff. So that's campus got full of stuff. We can go
Well,
on
the
top.
other office building that I think is really pretty top notch is that Deckers building. Between Target and Goleta
They
Airport.
have PV panels, but what else?
I think the orientation of the building and,
Okay, I'll look into Deckers. Yeah.
yeah, Deckers, they're pretty big on that. They did a
What-
huge landscape as well.
What was the
That was,
you're going too fast for me, which is great. But we had Deckers, we have the museum, we have UCSB. What was
Santa
the
Barbara
other?
Museum of Art.
Yeah, and what was the other one? There was another one.
There's, this county building. Santa
Oh,
Barbara County building?
Yeah. Thank you. Is that Nolita, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll call it. Yeah, because I've got grant. I used to partner with the county with grants and I forget the guy's name because I haven't seen him for years, but he'll be glad to, he'll give us a tour. Yeah, well, those are great ideas, great. And it's hard because I can't just drive around town and, expect to bump into things because nothing shows on the outside, right? You got to get into places. But Deckers,
Kind of forget about them.
yeah.
Yeah, the
I know.
Deckers building, I think, did quite a bit.
Well, in that area may have some, I'll scout that area and a lot of that new light industry and tech industry. There, I think, imagine that little row of buildings across from Deckers. I
Yeah.
imagine they might have some stuff. Just by the looks of it, it looks kind of like they've done some stuff. And you know who has stuff also is what's the charity there?
Yes, they do.
Direct relief.
Yes, Direct Relief. They did a
Direct
lot of great
Relief.
things.
Yeah, there we go. Now we're cooking tonight. Yeah, Direct Relief. They do have a lot of stuff in there. I'll go talk to them. Cause see, we can put a lot of those together down at that side of town. Yeah, Direct Relief will have some stuff. Carol Ashley runs that class. She had a warehouse right where Direct Relief is. She was leasing a warehouse and they said, well, you can only lease it for a couple of years because Direct Relief's coming in and building a mega mansion there. They're a good group though, have to say.
Yes. Yeah, I did actually tour of that place.
Yeah, so they'll
Before-
have,
Yeah,
Yeah.
before they put the medicine in. Now with the medicine in, that no
Oh.
one can go in the actual warehouse.
oh, is that right?
Right.
Like COVID medicine?
Well,
No.
because it's a pharmaceutical warehouse and public cannot access that by
Really?
law.
No, well, then we can't
Because
go
there's
there.
narcotics, there's, you name it.
Oh, jeez.
But
Oh,
you
well.
can see the lobby and what they did.
Yeah,
in order
I'll go
to-
down there and check it out. Maybe there's enough there, especially with the other stuff. You know, we could talk about the Chumash Indian villages too. Because they're all in there. They were all in there. The you know, the golf course on Fairview and
Yeah, the old one behind the tire
West
shop.
State Street, what was State, yeah, behind the tire shops. Hollister. That was a really big, that was one of the biggest ones. But then if you go down Hollister by that the new motel that has the garden, what's that called?
The Bacara?
No, the hotel. No, just down on Hollister before you get to even
Oh, right. Yeah.
before even Los Caneros. You know, it's not Holiday Inn, but it's one of those that has the long stay. What do they
Right.
call those? Garden, I don't know.
Hilton Garden Inn or something.
Yeah. Right behind them was another village.
Hmm.
So yeah, so they weren't worried about the sun because they lived outside all the time. But their worry was water. I mean, think if you don't have any kind of water, plumbing or water source, and you need fresh water to live.
Mm-hmm.
So all their villages were automatically on all the creeks that come out of the hills. And over the time that they were here, there would probably be seasons where it would dry up and they'd have to move. You know, they would go as far as the Central Valley if they had to, or further down toward LA to find more water. I mean, think about that. You know, you don't have a water source and your creeks start
Mhm.
drying up. It's pretty hairy. Anyway. Yeah, the Galita Chumash were the most extensive, and there's a lot of stuff we could do. You know, they had UCSB used to have a asphalt. What's the word? They had a pipe into the ground. Asphalt would come out. What would you call it? Well, I guess an asphalt well right in the middle of campus.
Kind of like a tar pit.
Yeah, but it was a well. They actually could bring up, and so the Indians they used asphalt a lot. What always kills me is they used it for their baskets to hold water. They would coat it with asphalt. And you know how nasty asphalt is to smell?
Yeah.
God. But you got to do what you got to do, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I'm looking up at that Decker's building. So they do use tilt up panels.
Yeah, that's a pretty common industrial roof thing. So if they'll let us up
Right.
there, you know, Costco has those too, but you know, you can't see them from the road because they've got
True.
parapet walls around them. So maybe I'll call Deckers and see if they'll. Oh, you know what else is there in that row is the infrared camera.
Oh, Flare, FLIR, Flare.
Flare or FLIR, yeah. Yeah, they're in
Flare.
there too. I wonder if they have anything. I
Yeah.
got one. I bought two of their cameras, and we've lost the battery for one, and one of the cases broke right away. You know, the little flip things. I've always been wanting to go in there and get a free case. It's like a 12-year-old camera. They'll probably laugh me out of there, but you never know. But I'll go see what's in there too, because that might be interesting.
Yeah,
too.
so it's the Altman's construction company did the Deckers, and it's in LEED silver certified.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. I didn't realize that.
Mhm.
All the buildings at UCSB are LEED certified.
Right.
So that would be another thing we can see there. Yeah, the Deckers, I haven't, you know, I always think about going in there because of the solar panels, but God, there's sure a lot in that area. That's really interesting. You know, it's too bad. What was a German company that makes the tools? You know, all the good tools have the green color. Festool. Festool, like we have at school. They were right down behind the athletic club in Los Caneros Way and Hollister. A lot of
Is there
stuff
a
down there.
Festo facility here in Santa Barbara?
What's that?
Is there a Festo facility here in
No.
Santa Barbara?
No, they have some. The people who sell Festool
Oh, okay.
are Buena Tool down next to Hayward. Well, it's now part of Hayward. They have a whole display and they sell that stuff. Are you interested in Festool tools?
Yeah, I used to get for pneumatics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
wow.
are really
So-
good tools.
So you can go down there to, at the Laguna branch of Hayward,
Mhm.
and you can go into Buena Tool, which is on the corner there of Haley and Laguna. And they have,
Laguna.
yeah. And if you go in there and ask, especially if you ask for Tom Good, if he's still there, he's getting ready to retire. He's like me, that he can't let go. But he will just say, I sent you there. We're old buddies from way back because he supplied all our tools over the years. And he will show you, there's a couple walls, and he will show you stuff, So if you're interested,
Right.
what they have and want to know more or what the latest stuff is, he might be able to help you. Maybe the other
Yes.
guys can too, but I know Tom knows everything.
What's the name of the place again?
Buena, like Spanish for good, Buena Tool.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
His name's Tom Good, so he named his business Buena Tool.
yeah.
And then he just sold it to Hayward a couple years ago, but he's still acting head until he retires. He's done it his whole life. He goes to that one office for 40 years or something.
Wow.
He can't quit.
Wow.
I say, Tom. He says, Patrick. One of these
Yeah,
days. we'll
Festo,
retire.
they're really great tools.
Yeah, and the
From-
yeah, and they are. They're expensive.
They're very expensive, but yeah.
Yeah,
I guess
but
the
they're the
Germany-
best. They're the best. Many of them are the best. You know that vacuum connection where all their tools have a vacuum port?
Yeah.
That right there was one of the biggest coups of all time. Because so many times contractors make such messes when they work, like on a remodel where you're working in a house. And any way you can get that stuff shunted away is the bee's knees.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna
Oh,
check it out.
Yeah. So,
It's time.
huh?
Oh, also the Santa Barbara Airport, gold standard.
Oh, the airport. That's a freaking beautiful building, isn't it?
It's a lead gold certificate, a gold certification.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea too. You're full of good ideas. Santa Barbara Airport. You know,
Just thinking any new building really in the last
yeah, I know.
10
I know.
years.
Yeah, but a lot of times the lead stuff's not as visible or it's the same stuff. So,
Right.
but we should do one. We should do a few just to see what they have.
You can
But
kind of see. what-
also the waste plan is across from that too. We can see
Yeah,
what they're-
great.
We can see what they're up to.
Mm.
Yeah. God bless. Oh, that's a must. We should go to the landfill.
Oh,
The Tahigas one,
Well, it's not building so much, although there is some. The
but they
Tahegan
just
landfill.
built that
Because they have that
new.
reclamation center there. Oh, I'll ask everybody next week what they think about that. It's not as related to building, but although building material goes into the landfill.
Is this Tahigas?
mm,
Yeah, it's at Tahigas, and they built this multi-million-dollar.
Is it up and running again?
Well, yeah, the fire came close to it and burned around
They
it.
protected most of it.
What?
I think some of it didn't. It didn't get. It's not 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
It
So
did
I'll
get
find out.
most of
I'll
it.
find out if they're reopened. Carol and I went up there. We were the first tour of the place, and man, it was impressive, really impressive. But that's
Yeah,
that's really part of building, and we do
Yeah,
have
that's good.
we do have a unit of reuse and at the end toward the end. So yeah, that's an idea too.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Gotta go tour it before it fills up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only got a few more years, but that's something we could ask. That's a discussion we could have with the guy. I'll see if I can get this one guy who's they're all pretty good. They pay people, they have an educational wing there. They educate the local public and they pay there's a couple of paid positions and they're really great. I was so impressed. And I'm hard to impress when it comes to that stuff. And these guys really knew their stuff. And it gives you a view of what's going on in our local area, you know?
Mhm.
So y'all find out if they're open enough to give a tour. But it's,
So Saturday, are we going to just the Wake Center, right?
no, I'll send out an email.
Okay,
I haven't decided yet. I gotta figure out. And then I'll get feedback on the email. I'll ask who will need a ride. They'll know where it is. If it's not near where they live or they can't ride their bike or whatever, then I can meet them and pick them up. So we'll get all that straightened out. I'll try to decide tonight or tomorrow. I just have field trip. Well, let's do I'll call the museum. It may be a rush job, but the daylighting and some more photovoltaics would be close to the unit we're just doing.
Mm.
So that would be probably good. The next unit is lighting and windows, but we might go to, one trip we go to is Home Depot to look at their lighting display because they have a really good LED and dimmers. And so, and then there's a development that has the solar heated pool, but that's down near Goleta. I mean, that's down near Home Depot. Yeah, let me group some things together and I'll let you know. And then we got a lot of stuff, so. Okay,
Okay.
so any more questions? That's about, am I missing anything? Yeah, so you guys don't get to see the books up close, but that's gonna end real soon. Because next time we're at Wake Center, where we're actually there and not on a field trip, or a night class, which is only one class away, then all these things I get resources from, you can thumb through and look and see if you would like, to buy some of those books for your own reference. God, the photovoltaic just goes on. I mean, there's so much to learn. I didn't want to give you guys too much, but it will determine so much in the building industry. And again, that's my big beef with the way architectural development is going in eco cities, is that they're trying to densify everything because they have too many damn people on the planet and leave a rural ring around them, suburban and then rural ring, and have more green space. But you eliminate any kind of solar stuff, you can have photovoltaics on roofs, but if you're all packed into a building, that's not going to be enough roof space for everybody living there. But you can't have any kind of passive solar because you won't have very many windows. Dense housing doesn't have as much windows. So I'm a suburban advocate. I'm one of the last of them. And I think you can have all your walls exposed. Therefore, your orientation, you have a lot more opportunity for orientation for solar, for all the solar applications. Plus, you're closer to nature. When nature's in your backyard or in the lot across the street, you can go there and you feel safe. A lot of people won't go into forests, won't their kids go there anymore, into local woods because of all the crap in our society now. But in your backyard, it's secure. And you can grow a lot of stuff. So I think that's more of the future than dense. We're only getting dense because we're afraid to put our foot down on overpopulation. And we're going to have to do it. Once we do it, then when we have less pressure for housing, then we can have more variety of housing development designs.
We do have a car, so living more dense means less cars.
Yeah, it's got a lot of advantages. That's why they plug it. But I think people need nature more than they need public transportation.
Yeah.
That group, No Child Left Inside? It was a Santa Barbara Goleta group. I love that.
Oh, that's funny.
We got to all get outside more. But I think, along with urban horticulture, suburban horticulture is really going to be important too. everybody has a front yard. They could convert all their front yards and backyards to food sources. And then also it's really good on the animals in terms of ecosystems. They don't want to, they do go to cities. You see sparrows eating at Starbucks, so thank God animals are bold as they are, but a lot of animals won't do that. You're not going to get coyotes and, a lot of the small mammals into big cities, although they are coming into cities because we're taking all their land, so they don't have any choice. But I think we can do a lot more ecosystem support in a suburban setting. But anyway, we can have that conversation later. It's a raging thing, but I just think overpopulation drives it. And there's other reasons for not having a population. We don't have the ecological services for the people we have now. So, but that's a huge question. So let's end it there. And
Okay.
we will have a field trip Saturday, which I will let you know when and where and how. And then we have lighting next week, Monday. And that's going to be our last online class. And then that Saturday, the Saturday after next Saturday is a holiday. It's a President's Day. And then the Monday after that, we get a present on each end. It's also President's Day. This is all in your schedule, so you'll see it. But so I have a field trip, and then we'll skip a week and then have a field trip after that. It'll give me more time to prepare that. Okay.
Okay.
All right, you guys. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to do. We still got to insulate. We still got the actual house stuff coming up. I know you guys are looking forward to that. Yeah. Oh, boy. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
All
Thank
right.
you.
See you guys next week,
Yeah.
Saturday.
All right, Patrick, see you Saturday.
All right.
Right. Thank you, Patrick. Bye.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, you were on a roll.
Well, it's one of the areas I know most about. That's why they had me teach this class. Solar. Or you just mean about the overpopulation?
Oh no, I liked the end how you and
Era.
yeah, you guys are just going back and forth. That was great.
Yeah. She's yeah, I'm in the vast minority because the architects have convinced everybody that EcoCity should be a certain way, but
Yeah, they're doing some cool stuff in Europe. I've been noticing, like the Netherlands and communities that have their like biodigesters that filter all of their wastes and water so that they can reuse it. So it just goes through a series of different bacteria and stuff like that that basically clean everything out so that they can just reuse everything. They're not
yeah.
getting rid of anything. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Holland, you hit it. Holland's doing a lot. Holland and Denmark are the leaders over there. They're just, God, every couple of months they come up with some. They're doing great urban gardening. They have these rack systems you can buy. They're like little rooms, frames, and they're really well designed and beautiful. And then you can put a ton of plants and different kind of arrays on them. God. Yeah. Yeah, you get on the internet and you'll end up in Holland or Denmark at some point. Great. It's great. I love it. We'll talk about this later, but the ecology minded scientists and builders like John Todd did that. He made that system of just tanks of water with water plants and fish and shrimp. And he calls them living systems, maybe. You could put shit on human feces on one end and you could drink the water on the other end.
It's amazing.
Yeah, he was the guy who perfected that. And he's done a lot of work for community waste plants using those systems and really gotten rid of sludge and stuff that was killing places in Massachusetts and Connecticut. Yeah, I mean, he's much lauded in his field, but people need to know more about him.
That wastewater plant in Goleta is a good place to tour too. I took a environmental studies class, and the lab that went with it is one of Adam Green's classes. We go to all
Yeah.
these places like the wastewater, the landfill, the desal plant. So pretty interesting stuff. They actually,
Yeah, I've gone to that. I've had that tour
yeah, they use a strain or two of bacteria in that.
years back. Yeah, and they know about. God, where did I write all that stuff down?
Oh no.
Well, I can reconstruct it. Yeah, that I'll write that down too. Waste plant. See what if they are. Oh yeah, here it is.
If we do Cobb with Mike, that'll probably take a whole Saturday at least.
Oh yeah, we can afford 2 or 3.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because
Oh yeah,
if we're
these
trying to
things we
finish
can
this, might
we
take
can
a couple-
combine, and not all of these will pan out. So, oh yeah,
If-
we got plenty.
If we just have him come to like one to show us what to do, we
Yeah.
can do it on our own too.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
So
Yeah, we can have a class or two, and then people can go on their own individually too, or in groups, or however Mike will let us set it up. Yeah,
that thing done.
I like to get things done, so we'll figure that out.
Yeah, he's funny when I talk to him about it. He's like, "Well, it's not really one of my priorities." And it's funny because that thing's been sitting
Yeah.
half
Well,
finished for
well,
years.
Well, I sent an email to him. We'll see what he says. But if he's wishy-washy about it, I'll pump his interest.
I'll
say, look,
probably
we'll-
see him tomorrow. I'll talk to
I'll
him.
say, we'll take over and do it. You just have to give us permission and meet us there and all that.
Just tell us what you want done.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
I mean,
he might be afraid of more responsibility of his time.
Yeah, maybe. So if you can release him of that, then he
Yeah.
might be more willing.
Yeah. Maybe I'll go up and look at it before we get involved. I mean, he may want us to come right away, but if it's a few weeks, I can go up there and scope it out and make a plan for it.
Well, he's around the next couple days in the mornings. We have a class on Thursday in the afternoon, so
That's
come up and look at it.
in the garden
Yeah.
this Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday from 1 to 4 is our class. So if you wanted to come up before that,
Okay.
that'd be a good time to do it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask him about that.
All right, man. I'm gonna go take the dog for a walk.
Okay, good idea.
All
All
right.
right, you.
See you, Patrick.
All right, see you later.